And welcome back, guys, to another episode of Katawa Shoujo. In the last part, Lily confessed to us. And we pretty much confessed back. Which is wonderful news. Finally, they actually show their care for one another. It's one of those things where it's hard. It's actually pretty hard to quantify that this has actually happened within, a very short amount of time, technically. Right? But at the same time, when two people fall in love, they fall in love. It's almost instantaneous in some instances. But anyway, let's continue on. We slowly walk back to the house, holding each other tightly as we take a seat inside. Lily leans her head on my shoulder as I put my arm around her waist. Neither of us has any want to break the silence. With her eyes shut, it's hard to work out whether she's fallen asleep. Not that I mind. The warmth of her body leaning against me, the softness of her hands delicately held in mine. For a long, long time we sit leaning against one another, sharing our warmth and feeling as night eventually begins to settle in. Lily's gentle, soft voice ends the silence. Thank you, Hisao. Thank you? For returning my feelings. Did you think I wouldn't? There was the possibility. I take a deep breath and thought. That much was only my fault. It's funny, actually. I was thinking of telling you about my feelings sometime soon. I guess, in that way, you saved me the effort. She raises her hand a little and gives a tiny amused giggle. I smile at how earnest it is, so girlish in its lightness. She collects herself soon afterward, her hair resting against my shoulder. Feeling a bit better? She gives a small nod. You are thoughtful, Hisao. That's why I like you. I'm sorry I'm like this. As much as I didn't want to make you concerned for me, I couldn't do anything to prevent it. Don't apologize for it. Please don't. Lily? Have I ever apologized for my blindness? Even once? You can't help the way you were born, Hisao. There's no point in apologizing for who you are. She says this with surprising conviction. In the end, it was perhaps this mentality which spurred her to befriend me in such a short time, in addition to her motherly instincts. She did seem to become trusting very quickly, but I never questioned why. Now it seems obvious that she did so to help me as I went through one of the lowest points of my life. I moved to respond, but cut myself off as I feel her fingers run gently through my hair. I feel their soft and delicate touch moving downwards to trace the contours of my face, her palms finally settling on my cheek. You're a beautiful person, Hisao. Please don't ever apologize for that. For a moment, I'm utterly speechless. I slowly bend my head down, placing a tender kiss on her light, voluminous hair. We're a couple of right old fools, aren't we? We are. After a long calm, she speaks again. Hisao? Yes? I wouldn't mind if you... I feel her hand tensing under mine, trembling slightly. My mouth opens, but try as I might, I can't formulate a response to her proposition. Lily? Before I can say another word, she slips her hand from under mine and tenderly holds the side of my face once more. Please? Oh, well, you can't just say fucking no to that. Holy shit. Actually, I'm amazed that he hasn't frickin' kissed her yet. Jesus Christ, dude. I give a peaceful smile, holding her hand against my cheek as I nod a single time. Okay. As I look into her eyes, she leans towards me. Her delicate lips touch mine as she guides herself with her hand. She breaks off not a second later, faintly smiling. I love you, Hisao. We kiss again, this time with both of us meeting the other. While the previous kiss was one of love, this one's of lust, our tongues meeting and our breathing heavy. After precious seconds, we part, both our faces well and truly flushed. Both of us bring our fingers to our lips in unison, recalling that fleeting feeling. rapidly becoming buried both by our urges and bashfulness. Lily is the first to shift uncomfortably, though. What is it? Should we get more comfortable? Okay. Now that she mentions it, this futon would be a bit too narrow to do much on. Considering the thoughts running through both of our minds, it's no small wonder one of us has any measure of foresight left. I take her hand and guide her sideways as I move, the brief and awkward dance ending with both of us tentatively sitting on the floor opposite each other. As I reach forward to pull her on top, she stops after she moves her hands to do the same. You're shaking. I pause for a moment and look at my hands. Sure enough, they're quivering slightly. Whether it's from nervousness or excitement, I'm not sure. I guess I am. So you're as nervous as I am, then? I withdraw my hand and sigh, steadying myself. We have plenty of time, so there's no need to rush this. Alright, so if this is going where I think it's going, this game is for a mature audience. And maybe let's have the plus and minuses here. Okay, you gonna do it on the floor. That's fine. It's cool that you do it on the floor. But the problem with that is also that Hanako is in the other room sleeping, and she has had a fucking terrible time dealing with the fact that we almost died. Don't know if this is appropriate, but these types of things never truly are, to be perfectly honest. I actually don't know what I'm going to do with the sex scenes. I haven't really thought about it. Maybe they're just going to make out. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, but we'll see how this goes. Withdraw my hands and sigh, steadying myself. We have plenty of time, so there's no need to rush this. Sorry, it's my first time, so I'm a bit... She giggles shakily, all but confirming what I reasonably deduced by now. It's the same for me. I'm happy we could share this together. I match her smile twofold, leaning forward and taking her body in my arms as she reaches to hug back. I love you, Lily. You already said that. I can't help grinning. Even in such a situation, she still has her wits about her. Breaking our embrace, we decide to take off our own clothing. While it's easier this way, I doubt it's just an attempt to distract ourselves from our nerves. With slightly stiffening hands, I begin to slide the first button out from my shirt. Once we remove the last of our clothes, which ends up haphazardly piled beside us, my breath is taken by the sight in front of me. Oh, okay. That's boobs. There's boobs. And everything else. I'm gonna have a lot of editing to do. Maybe I should just black this out. I'm actually not too sure how to proceed from here. Her long, shapely legs, full hips, and her breasts plump but dainty. Her slightly blushing face, delicate and reserved, is framed by the bangs of her hair. It is kind of cute that she actually has her hair down. I think she had her hair down in her PJs. Her hands, tightly held behind her, only serve to further accentuate her chest. Her tall and pale body is beautiful when bared. This girl in front of me, reserved yet playful, astute yet hospitable, is the girl I've fallen in love with. I lean forward, delicately taking her shoulders in my hands. As I do, she brings her hands to my chest with a slightly uneven breath. We lean in, a deep kiss. I feel one of Lily's hands slowly slide up my shoulder, it and her head very gently moving forward. Assuming her intent, I lean back onto the floor. Ugh. Aww. I mean, there's boobies on the screen, but It's a really cute scene, to be perfectly honest. She lowers herself beside me, one hand stroking my hair as the other moves across my chest. The feeling of her breast against it is enough to excite me. This must be her way of taking in what I've already seen of her. Despite her lack of sight, she engraves every detail of my bare body and chest into her mind. When her middle finger falls into the slight recesses of my chest scar, a lingering effect of my operation so many months ago, she slowly runs her hand down its length. This is the scar from my surgery. They had to do this in order to operate on my heart. For a moment, she's lost for words. The idea of such extensive scarring adding a new worry for her. Her expression changes from curiosity to apprehension. Should we really be doing this kind of thing? Those words bother me beyond what is rational. I mean, to be fair, it actually could be bad if he's not careful. You know, like, he could give himself a heart attack. And, like, that's the scary thing about arrhythmia. Like, really the scariest thing is, like, things that you normally take for granted turn into this type of thing, you know? Lily's face breaks my heart more than even her words possibly could, yet I don't even know the answer to her question. I can't let this condition dominate me forever. It may not even be medically advisable, but I'd outright refuse to live my life in such a prison. Spoken like a true teenager. What do you mean I can't have sex? Well, I'm gonna have sex anyway. It's okay, Lily. This much will be okay. Her troubled expression holds for a moment longer, but she eventually acquiesces, her hands moving to my lower chest and then my thigh. Oh, okay. We're zooming out here. With a look of slight surprise, she slowly moves her hands downward, her breath catching as she brushes the side of my lower hair. She tentatively moves her hand sideways, delicately touching the most honest part of my body. I'm sorry, but referring to that as the most honest part of your body is fantastic. Bravo. Bravo. This deserves a clap. I want claps in the comments. That's all I want. I don't know how much of this I can actually show you. And I don't know if I really want to be very descriptive with this type of stuff. This is... yeah. Our nervousness peaks at the act beginning, her hands gently patting down, up and down as lightly as it would break if breathed upon. I'm not sure whether it's just to steady myself or because I want to steady her, but I take my free hand and hold the side of her face in it. The feeling of her hair and the soft skin is nice, and it seems to lighten her mood a bit. The mere fact that I am being touched by her is surprisingly erotic. I feel my body relaxing as I submit to the pleasure overwhelming me. Long minutes pass in almost total silence. Our heavy breathing, the only sound to be heard in the house. Lily's fingers stop, affectionately stroking my hair, and she opens her lips once again. Hasao? I wait a second for the rest of the sentence, but none is forthcoming. She may be trying to take the lead, but she's still incredibly nervous. Look at his face! Oh god, that's actually really funny. I can't help smiling as I stroke her hair from her face a couple of times, reassuring her. As nervous as she may be, I'm thankful that Lily is taking the lead. I'd probably be just as anxious as she if I were attending to her. Okay. She pauses a moment before giving a small nod, sitting up and shifting her legs over mine. Once again, her breath is stolen by the magnificent sight of her body over mine. Oh, wow, okay, we're getting graphic here. Holy shit. I know, like, this is something that I always struggle with, and hear me out just for a second. I'm not showing any of this. I can't. But the whole idea is that these games are meant to have an 18 plus rating. They're meant to have this type of content in them. And a lot of the times, there is a lot of context within them. Now, I'm not saying all visual novels do this, but this one has been very, very character-driven and focused thus far. So, to me, showing this type of stuff, or like at least reading the text to you as much as I can without, every type of banhammer slamming down on me, I think it's sort of important, and that's why I keep them on. I know there is a way to turn these off, but I feel like it sort of cheapens the experience because something vital could have happened in this, and I think that's important to really go over it. Now, like I said, as it gets more, like erotica, I'll probably start like sifting through it and not talking, or not like completely narrating every line that's being said, but at the same time, I think it's sort of part of it. Like, we're experiencing a couple's first very intimate moment, right? And that's kind of important in a sense, because it can define the relationship in some regards, right? But regardless of that, I can only look on frozen as she delicately lowers herself, resting her reddened lips over me. She slowly begins to move her hips downwards, her softness enveloping my consciousness. Actually, they're being pretty tact about how they're how they're wording these things. I know what's happening because I can see it, but I'm sure like you guys can picture it on top of everything else. She takes a deep breath to collect herself, her face remaining steady, with her hands taking in my body in lieu of sight. The intimate situation muddles her usual efforts to compensate for lack of eye contact. She gradually lowers herself onto me, her knees and hands supporting her as she does. Her entire body tenses as I enter, her expression obviously one of stifled pain. Despite that, I can't help savor the soft, warm feeling enveloping my consciousness, the surge of pleasure overcoming all my senses. Enveloping my consciousness. They're doing a really good job. The last vestige of it all but disappears inside her, while her nails slightly scrape into my chest in an effort to stop herself from yelping in pain. A pained moan too much for her to suppress completely escapes her lips. As I open my mouth to comfort her, I see the barely visible red drops from between her legs. Ah, yes. Lily, if it's too much... She clenches her mouth tightly, quickly and forcefully shaking her head from side to side in defiance. After a couple of seconds, she relaxes her body slightly, though she's still obviously far from being comfortable. It's okay. I'm okay. She swallows hard, trying to collect herself. Lifting herself slowly and bringing herself back down, she relaxes a little more, as feeling of pleasure begins to overtake those of pain. Her breast starts to match the same ragged pattern as mine, her body moving almost teasingly slow. She looks as if she's slowly beginning to enjoy the act, my feelings finally reaching her. I'm not sure if she's keeping herself at this speed for her sake or for mine, but either way, with this slow and steady pace, I think I can keep my body in check. It's funny, in a way, that even now I'm depending on her. For us to be joined together like this, our feelings so close, it makes me glad to be sharing our first moment together like this. It is an almost overwhelming feeling. I love you, Lily. Hasao. Those are screamed. Those are supposed to be screamed, but I'm not going to scream them. I'm assuming. Not screamed, but verbally loud. There's lots of exclamation points. I can feel her body tensing, her breathing and movement becoming steadily less carefully controlled. I'm happy to be making her feel so good, but as my thoughts become increasingly focused, I can feel myself rapidly nearing my limit. Control of my body is instantaneously wrestled from my mind as I grip my teeth hard. A loud moan escapes as I climax and my hips hit hers. Her body hunches over at the same moment, her breast touching at my chest. She stays locked in all-encompassing ecstasy for a brief moment, my mind completely taken by the feeling for a precious few seconds. It ends all too soon, and our bodies collapse in exhaustion, with Lily barely staying on top of me. I lifelessly manage to wrap my arm around her limp, sweaty body, and for minutes we simply lay there, slightly savoring the contact with each other while we recover from the experience. Neither of us had thought ourselves prepared for such a thing. Of that much I am certain. Entirely drained far past the point of conversation, I look at her tired face. It looks as if the exertion, both physical and mental, has almost forced her to the verge of collapse. I love you, Lily. She nods weakly, rubbing my hair with her left hand. If we could simply remain together like this for an eternity, it would be a paradise like no other. Aw. I mean, like I said, despite the visuals that I just can't show you, it was tasteful. That was very tasteful. Sometimes, in some visual novels, and I have to point this out because it's one of those things, there are certain visual novels where it's just like everything's going great and the story's going really good, and then the sex scene happens, and it's as if a different person has come in and is writing super smut. You know, like, and that's the thing. Now, I will state this, since we're coming to the end of this part, I think this is a good place to stop. I do want to mention that if you do find this inappropriate, I will put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video, because obviously this type of stuff is. And if you don't think that it's relevant, you don't feel that I should read through this or show it, I can splice and cut the game out, and I can sort of just describe to you at the beginning of a part or when we come back about what happened, and I can try my best to be very vague about it. But like, pretty much, like, they were very vague about that. I was quite, like, I've learned so many new phrases for things. The most honest part of my body is probably I think I'm going to refer to that as that from now on. But anyway, take care, guys. I really hope that you haven't been offended or anything like that by this turn of events, or grossed, or anything in between. And if you want to voice some concern or anything like that, please just write it down in the comments below. I'll try my best to work around this type of stuff. So take care, guys. Stay frosty, and I'll see you tomorrow.